All right, good evening. Welcome. My name is Pat Kowitzel, and I am the Buyer and Author Program Coordinator at Magic City Books. And I want to welcome you all to our program tonight with the debut novelist, Casie Bazay, and we're going to be featuring her book, Not Our Summer. Here it is. I know that a lot of you that are watching tonight have pre-ordered the book, and thank you for that. We've gotten those out into the mail. If you asked to pick it up in the store, it's available and ready for pickup now. And if you asked to have it mailed to you, then it is on its way. Some of you may have even received it already. And so we're going to talk to Casie here in just a moment. But before we do, just a few programming notes. We have a lot of people that join us for our virtual author programs that are here for the very first time. And so every one of these programs, we welcome a brand new audience to a degree, and we want to thank you for spending a little bit of your time with us. Magic City Books is a nonprofit bookstore in downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we produce 2 or 3 of these virtual author programs just about every week. And so we have a full list of those programs at magiccitybooks.com. And hopefully you like tonight's program and join us again for a future one. We also record these programs and post them to our YouTube channel. And we have over 130 of our previous conversations there on YouTube. And so including this one will be up there tomorrow. And as a registered guest of this event on Zoom, you will receive that link and you can check out all of those, but you can search for Magic City Books on YouTube and see all of our past author programs. We have Matthew McConaughey in conversation with Woody Harrelson. We did an event with Rachel Maddow last December. We did an event with Joy Harjo, the U.S. Poet Laureate, just a couple weeks ago. And we have a lot of really good events coming up in the next couple of weeks and really into July. We are getting to the place now where we're starting to have some conversations about more in-person programming. And so kind of stay tuned for that. We do have a couple things that are starting to happen. Our first couple have been put on the schedule. They haven't been announced yet, but the dates have been held. And so we've got a couple of those that are coming up later this summer. But we are kind of slowly returning to that space where we can be doing these once again in person. So gosh, it's been a couple of months, I think, since I first connected with Casie about this book. She reached out and told us at Magic City Books that that she's got this book coming out. It's going to be coming out in May, and it's something that she'd love to be able to do something with us. And of course, we jumped at the chance. We don't do enough YA events, and so we're always excited about it. And to be able to feature an Oklahoma author, that made it just a no-brainer. And so pretty quickly thereafter, a copy came in the mail for me. That's the one that I'm holding up here. And there's some perks to being a bookseller professionally. You get to read things before they come out. And so while the birthday of the book is today, and all of you are able to read it now, I was able to read it a little bit early. And so it was terrific. And I'm really excited to be able to talk to Casie about the book. So I want to first just say a big Magic City Books welcome to Casie Bazay. Thank you for joining us. And Casie, congratulations on this great book.
Thank you. And thank you so much for hosting me in this event tonight and for doing my pre-order campaign. That was really exciting to get to do that and go sign all those books. So
That's right.
Very excited to be here.
Yeah. And that's been one of the nice, getting that chance to see those names of the people that had pre-ordered the book and you've been able to come into the store. And so, yes, every copy that we have on hand right now is signed by Casie. We have to purchase the book in the chat, and we're going to continue to post those links kind of throughout the event. But if you haven't gotten your copy of the book yet, we certainly encourage you to do so. And you can just follow that link. You can do it right now. And while we're talking and be able to buy that and continue listening to us, we promise not to do anything too visually stimulating while you're we also are really hopeful that you'll ask us some questions and have some questions for Casie. We want to hear from you. So please, if you're watching on Zoom, please post those in the Q&A function so that we can easily be able to get those questions asked during the program. If you're watching on Facebook, then just post it in the comments and I'll be checking that as well so that we can get those questions asked for Casie. Casie, I just wanted to start by kind of getting a little bit about your writing background. in your bio, it says that this is your first published novel, but as is the case with many debut authors, this is not the first thing that you've written. You've been around for a long time. Tell us a little bit about, kind of where you started and how we got to May 11th, 2021.
Okay. It's funny because I just wrote a blog post about this today. I had it planned to do yesterday, but yesterday was just really busy and overwhelming. But so I wrote a blog post kind of detailing my path to publication, but you can check it out on my blog, but I'm going to talk about it here as well. But Not Our Summer is my first published novel, but it's definitely not the first novel I wrote. It's actually the fourth completed novel that I've written. I would say I've written 4.5 books because my first attempt at a novel never turned into anything. I probably quit about halfway through. So it's been about a 10-year journey. So I was a middle school teacher for 10 years. In 2010, I left. I had my daughter and I had a year's leave of absence. And then sometime, when she was a baby, like maybe 8 or 9 months, I decided, I'm going to start writing. I started doing freelance, and then I decided I wanted to also try to write a book. And so, that's kind of when that process started for me. So I've read that the average to get traditionally published, the average length of time, like from start to actually getting published, is like anywhere from 8 to 10 years. And that was certainly true for me. So it was a very long process. Just with each book that I wrote, I learned a little more about the writing process itself. I learned how to query literary agents, because that's usually the first step if you want to get traditionally published. But Not Our Summer is my fourth completed novel, first published, and hopefully the first of many. So
that's right.
10 years in the making.
Yes. And did you have any delays? I mean, the whole publishing industry kind of got turned on its ear last spring. Did your book suffer any delays because of COVID and schedules?
I think it did, yeah, because I had my publishing offer, December 2019, I believe, was when I first had the offer, so before COVID. But then I ended up, I wanted to get an agent, so I was querying some agents. I wanted the agent, to negotiate the deal and everything, help me through this process, because it's not something that's, easy to do just by yourself. So I think once I had signed with my agent and once she started the negotiations, that's about when COVID hit. And so it definitely slowed things down. And, I was really worried there for a little bit that, it might just get canceled, because nobody knew what was going to happen with publishing or with anything at that time. So I didn't actually sign the book deal until May of 2020. But then, once that was signed, I had actually already started revisions a little bit before that. And, we got things rolling and everything went pretty smoothly after that. So I would just say it was the contract, them pulling up the contract and negotiating that was what took a little while. And I think it was delayed because of COVID, but after that, everything was pretty smooth sailing. So thankfully.
Yeah. So Not Our Summer, is told in alternating chapters. That's not really giving, one of the challenges sometimes about talking about a novel is not giving anything away. And we probably anything away tonight. There are some things that you can learn just from reading the back of the book. And so it's told in alternating chapters between two cousins. And the cousins are estranged, but they really are actually strangers. They haven't spent a lot of time around each other, and their moms have a complicated history. So can you just kind of talk a little bit about where these girls are going into the book? I mean, what their lives have been kind of before the action of the book starts.
Sure, yeah. So we have two cousins, KJ and Becca, and they're actually pretty close in age. They're both 18, and the book starts at the tail end of their senior year. And so they lead very different lives. Their mothers, have there's been a long-standing feud between their mothers, and they've not really connected. They've only seen each other just a few times, like during their life, and they've only heard these awful things about each other. So, they already have this idea in their head that they don't like each other. So Becca is the one who comes from, a quote, more normal family. But her mother's been married several times. She lives in like a middle class, like she leads like a middle class life, lives pretty comfortably. She's an athlete. She plays soccer and she's really good at what she does. And she has a scholarship to the University of Arkansas. So she's definitely better off than her cousin KJ, who lives in a trailer park in Arkansas. They live like right across the border from each other, or KJ's in Oklahoma, sorry. Becca's in Arkansas. So they're like right across the border. They're not that far from each other, but they're in two different states. But KJ's had a rough upbringing. She's been raised by her single mom her whole life. Hasn't had much money. Hasn't, really made a lot of friends. Her only friend really, at least at the point when the book starts, is her neighbor Carter, who plays a pretty big part in the book, but as a side character. So yeah, they have grown up just living completely different lives. And so once they, do have to start spending time together, it's really hard for them to connect with each other. And the personalities are very different too. So
Yeah.
I think that plays a big part.
And right. And having kind of that time that they're spending together winds up being a rather involved, almost a bucket list road trip that their grandfather has sent them on in his will. And so talk a little bit about just kind of that decision to move the action around and have this kind of bucket list road trip as this kind of major feature of the book.
Yeah, so that was really that's what I structured the book around, was this bucket list. And like the original title for it even, had bucket list in it, like Bug Collector's Bucket List, which sounds probably a little bit too middle grade-ish, and that's why we ended up coming up with the title. But
yeah.
So, that was like my idea from the beginning, was that, I'd have these two cousins that don't like each other. They don't really know each other, but they're kind of forced together in order to complete their late grandpa's bucket list. And he was kind of a quirky guy. And so he also has agoraphobia. And so he didn't get out much. So he stayed at home mostly because of, his anxiety. And there were all these places he wanted to go. And he kept thinking, at some point in my life, I'm going to get better and our whole family is going to go on this trip. But since that never happened, as his health declined, he decided he was going to have his two granddaughters, and they are his only two granddaughters, go on these trips. So yeah, these are places kind of all over the US that I wanted the girls to go to. And I kind of wanted just to explore this really difficult family dynamic just against the backdrop of these different settings. So that was a lot of fun for me, just to be able to do that. So
yeah. And so the first two that trips they take are to Yellowstone and to the Grand Canyon. And have you been to both of those places? I mean, are those places that you're writing about with a little bit of experience?
Yes, yeah. So they go to the Grand Canyons first, and then Yellowstone second. And as a kid, like I have grown up camping with my family. That was always like a big part. That was a big part of my childhood, just traveling to different places. And it's something I still love to do, like the national parks. So I wanted to incorporate some of these places in this book. So yeah, I've been to the Grand Canyon. I think 3 times I've been there. So it's just one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been to. So yeah, I definitely wanted to use that in the book. The mule ride, however, is not something I've done. you and I were talking about this, but I'm a horse person, and most people who know me know that I've ridden horses my whole life. But just the thought of getting on a mule and like riding down into that canyon with that big, I'm scared of heights. So number one, that wouldn't work for me. But that just sounds terrifying to me. But I thought that would be a cool thing for the two cousins to do. So I decided to have them do that. And then Yellowstone, we just went there, gosh, maybe 5 years ago, like my whole family, my parents and my husband and my kids. And we all, I think my brother and sister-in-law went. So we just took a trip to Yellowstone, and it's also just an amazing place. So I love being able to share about some of these places as well that some people may have never been to, and hopefully it'll inspire them to want to travel there. So
That's right. That's right.
that's my hope.
Yeah. Well, as I was reading the book, I was thinking about kind of my own life at that time. And, at the time that I graduated from high school, at the time that, the action in this book kicks off, I had never driven further. I grew up in Eastern Iowa, and I'd never driven further than about 25 minutes away, 30 minutes away on my own. And I'd certainly taken other kinds of trips. The characters, Becca has done some traveling in her life. She's been other places. KJ's really hardly ever, almost never left the county, or the couple counties that she lives. And yet they just, they kind of, even though they don't really want to spend the time together, they kind of have a, real positive attitude about the trips as a whole, and especially KJ early on. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Did you take trips early and on your own at that age? Was that something that was
Definitely not, no.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't even probably drive out of state, like on my own by myself, until I was an adult, probably just like 10 years ago or so. But
Right.
I'm definitely not super adventurous. Like, and of course, this isn't their choice. They're having to complete these trips to get their inheritance. But no, it sounds really cool. Like looking back, I think it would have been really neat to do something like that at that age. But yeah, I never did anything like that. So not with, just friends or anything like that. So
I did that summer after I graduated. Tiger Stadium in Detroit was closing, and I really wanted to go see a baseball game there before it closed. And so my best friend and my brother and I drove from Iowa to Detroit and went to a game there. And that seemed like such a colossal trip. And especially we left like on Saturday, went to a Sunday game, came back after the game, we're back home Sunday night. It was like, 500 miles to go to a ball game. And that was kind of a cool trip. And it gave me a little bit of a connection to what, of course, I was going with a brother and best friend, and not a cousin that I didn't like. So that
that makes a difference. The furthest I probably went, like we used to go down to southeastern Oklahoma to a trail ride with the horses every year, Labor Day weekends, like my friends and I, and my mom was always there too, but we sometimes would drive separate and like stay in our own horse trailer, like a little, when we were older anyways. But yeah, that was like 2 hours away. So that would probably be my longest adventure at that age. So
right. Yeah. We have a question from Amanda, who she was, to kind of stay on this. She would like to know what destinations would be on your personal road trip bucket list.
Oh my goodness. My personal, well, the places in the book are all places I love. The only one I haven't been to is the whitewater rafting on the Chattooga River. And I don't know that I would, like, whitewater rafting sounds fun, like going over the Bull Sluice, which is a really big drop off, does not sound fun to me. But so yeah, I would definitely go to all of those places again, and even, maybe the Chattooga River just to see it. I love Washington State, the Pacific Northwest. I've been there once, and I'm going back again this fall, scheduled to go back. I love Canada. We have family in Canada, in Ontario, so I love going there. New York. One place I have not been that I would love to go is up to Maine, so up to the some of the northeastern states. and I love California. There's just so many places I love traveling to. So I think it would be really cool to take a road trip all the way, from across east to west, across the
Yes.
state. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah. That cross country road trip just has a real appeal to me as well.
yeah. And even driving up, my friend and I have talked about renting a convertible and going up the coast of California, up to Washington, or
Right.
going up through Oregon. So I think that would be really fun too. So
Right.
there's just all kinds of places I would love to travel as soon as everything opens back up again, and we can do that. So I mean, things are starting to open up, but yeah,
That's right.
I'm excited to travel again for sure.
That's right. Well, and one of the places that the girls go is Key West, Florida, and that's a place that I think holds for a lot of people holds a certain kind of unknown quality to it. It feels that way to me. Maybe
Mhm.
I'm that on other people, but it seems like kind of this place. Lots of people go to Florida. Lots of people, not only Disney World but all over Florida. But then the Keys kind of feel like farther than other places and stuff, and that you're really out there at the edge of something.
Yeah.
And so we had talked a little before we came on tonight that Key West is one of your favorite places. Tell us
Yeah.
about what you found when you went to Key West.
Yeah. Key West is just amazing. And I think when you read that part where the girls travel, that, like the way they're saying it is kind of how I felt the first time when I drove to Key West. So I don't know how many islands, I can't remember, but there's, a series of islands off the tip of Florida, the southern tip. And so the islands are not connected, they're islands. So they're connected by these bridges that span across the ocean. And some of them are like miles long bridges to where you're just driving basically on a highway with nothing but ocean on either side of you. And just if you've never experienced that, which most people probably haven't, that's just like one of the most amazing things ever. And we rented a convertible, my husband and I, when we took that trip. So that's the best way to do it for
Yes.
sure. So I think it's like a 4-hour trip from like the time you leave the tip of Florida, like near Miami, I think, and get to Key West. Like that's a 4-hour trip. So I mean, it's a ways down there, and it's just a 2-lane highway. It's the only way in and out. So yeah, each island kind of has its own feel. Like some of them are more like fishing, family oriented. And when you get down to Key West, that's it is somewhat family oriented, but it's also kind of like a party island, and there's just all kinds of fun stuff that goes on there. And there's chickens that are roaming around town. Like that was one of the funniest things to me, just walking around town, just roosters and chickens just walking around town. Just all kinds of fun stuff. So, and we didn't go scuba diving like the girls do, but we went snorkeling, went on a boat and did that. So, just the water's beautiful, just everything about that place. So if you ever get the chance to go to Key West, definitely take that chance. So take that opportunity.
We have another question here, kind of on our road trip theme from Valerie. She would like to know, what is the first car you drove as a teen, and did you have any adventures in it with your friends?
My first car was an Oldsmobile Cutlass Sierra, I think a 85, I don't know. So I was 16 in like 1993, so a while back. That car didn't last me very long because it had some problems, and I remember driving home from school and it like dying on me. So, and then I think we got ready to take it to like Oklahoma City, like my family, for Thanksgiving, and it just completely died. And so I didn't have that for very long. So no, there were no adventures in the Cutlass Sierra. And then I had a Honda, but yeah, I really didn't venture too far away on my own, other than, the horse stuff, like going on trail rides and going down to like Robbers Cave, and then going to college in Stillwater. I mean, those were my adventures. So I definitely never did anything like the girls do. And I would have loved to, though. That would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I wanted to talk about kind of the differences between KJ and Becca a little bit, and how, and just to talk a little bit, whenever I read a book with those alternating perspectives, I'm curious how, how the author is able to put that together, and are there days when you really want to, when you just can't write one of the characters and you have to focus on the other? I mean, are there days where Becca's just, she has something that she needs to get out of you, or did you find that you were able to kind of write either one of them on any given day?
So KJ's voice was a lot easier for me to write than Becca's. And I don't really know why that is. I just had like a clearer picture of who she was as a character and as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think any author will tell you there's like a little bit, we put a little bit of ourselves into every character that we write. So, I mean, I'm not exactly like either one of them, but there's pieces of me or things I identify with both girls. But like KJ, from right off the bat, was easy for me to write. Becca I had a harder time with, and she's like a little snarkier. I see her that way anyways. And so I don't know, I just had a hard time like pinning her down, like who she was at first. So it took multiple revisions. Like anytime I write a book, it's not just, write a rough draft and revise it once and I'm done. Like I do multiple revisions, like I would say 8 to 10. And then I get, beta reader, critique partner feedback, and kind of go from there. So I mean, when I was actually writing the story, I don't remember having much trouble switching. I would just have to kind of put myself in a different mindset to write from each girl's point of view. Grandpa Eli, because he has letters throughout the book, he was a little tricky too, just because, he's a 70-something-year-old man, and I don't have, the same life experiences that he would have had. And so that was tricky too. And I remember taking, I was in a writer's group pre-COVID, and, I would take this book and read parts of it. And, one of my friends just said, like something's off on Grandpa Eli's voice. Like, I think you need to figure something out with him and fix that. And so I ended up finding like a blog that an older gentleman kept, and I can't even remember the name of it, but he was a grandpa, and he kind of was like writing letters to his grandkids, or just kind of telling like bits of wisdom and stuff.
Right.
So reading his blog like really helped me like kind of shift Grandpa Eli's voice and kind of pin that down. So yeah, it's just trial and error and just, revisions to get that down. So
Right.
Yeah.
Takes
a while.
Yeah. Well, and kind of going through, the KJ, just with her experience and kind of how her life has been up to the point that we're at with the book, she has a mom that's not always around or able to be there for her, and so she's just kind of had it in a lot of ways. She's had to raise herself,
right?
And her friend next door, or at the trailer park, I mean, that's kind of the one other person. Becca has a really kind of strong core group of friends,
yes,
who are supportive of her. I mean, they might not be telling her you aren't always happy as a reader with the advice that they give her, but it's true. I mean, it's the advice that they would be giving her, and she's got a mom that's a little bit more in the picture and stuff. And so like, as an adult reader, that KJ was somebody that I could identify, like I understood where she was coming from a little bit more, and Becca still felt a little bit more like a teenager to me, because she had she was a little more insulated in her life experience and did from some of those things. And I thought that the trips allowed KJ to shine, but allowed Becca to grow up.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, they both definitely change throughout the story, as any character should. But yeah, and the interesting thing is when I had an idea of where the story was going to go, and I knew how it was going to end and everything. But I didn't particularly know as I was writing it, like how they would change or how they would shift, how their relationship would change. So I'm what's called a pantser. So like I don't outline a novel, I just write it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes things are a surprise to me as I'm writing. And like there was one thing, which I'm not going to say what it was specifically because I don't want to give it away, but there was one thing I thought it was going to happen with Becca, but instead it happened with KJ, and it just like changed the whole story. But I was like, oh, I like this, and I wanted to keep it that way. So, but yeah, for sure,
Right.
they both changed quite a bit throughout the story.
Yes. Yes. We have a question here from Aubrey that Amanda posted. So Amanda asking on behalf of Aubrey, if you could go on that road trip with only one of the characters, which one would it be?
One of the characters from the book, I take it. It would probably have to be KJ because she seems more fun to me. So yeah, I mean, I like both of the girls, but yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with KJ. So she seems pretty spontaneous and don't know what, quite where we would end up. And I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah. So at the, after they've taken these trips together, kind of the last thing that they have to do, that the girls have to do, is participate in a rodeo. And they're given, an opportunity to do just about anything. They just have to go out there and do it. And this is another thing that you have some experience with. You mentioned, being around horses your whole life. But, rodeos were a world that you lived in for quite a while. And so was that something that was that in the book? I mean, from the beginning that rodeo component was there?
Yeah. I mean, from the beginning, I, named the 5. I mean, 4 of them are technically trips they go on, and then the 5th is a rodeo. But I mean, I listed that out from the beginning. Like I knew where they were going to go and what they were going to do. And I mean, I was just trying to think of something that had, like, everything kind of has like an element of danger to it. But it's also something that would be considered fun and entertaining. So the rodeo I thought would be fun because these girls aren't, they haven't grown up in that world or anything. So it's not something that, they would be used to. So the type of rodeo they go to is probably not your average rodeo, which is the typical events, because this rodeo has like some extra like fun events such as like mutton busting, goat tying, or not goat tying, but goat milking. Just has some like fun, like amateur events that anybody could enter. So, those are the events they can choose from. So, they obviously don't have a horse to ride or don't have any experience, but these are like just fun events that anybody could enter and participate in. So, but yeah, I don't want to give away which ones they choose. You have to read
That's right.
to see what they end up doing at the rodeo. But yeah, that's something that I'm pretty familiar with. I barrel raced for a number of years and went to my fair share of rodeos for sure. So just thought that would be fun to have them in that element. So something that they're not used to.
That's right. We have a question from Deborah, and she asks, would you consider writing a second book featuring these 2 characters, or would that take it out of the YA genre?
I don't think it would, because there's a lot of like older YA. So, I could definitely pick up, like I just read Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. That's considered YA, and it's the characters in her first year of college, or so she's a freshman at college. So it definitely, could still be YA. I don't have any plans to right now. I don't have like another book deal, to continue this or anything. But, if that were something that the publisher or readers wanted, I would definitely consider it, because it's a world that I'm already comfortable in and characters I'm already comfortable with. So yeah, I could definitely do that. I don't know what would happen in that book, but it would be fun to do for sure.
Right. Well, and from a YA versus straight fiction, that kind of standpoint. I mean, it's that comes and goes. I think there once was a time when books written with teenagers as the main characters were just books. They were, Catcher in the Rye is just a book. It was always shelved in fiction, and it continues to always be shelved in fiction. Now, if it were written now, because he's a teenager, it would be YA.
Yeah.
So that's the example that always gets used, but it's the one that probably holds.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's realistic books, there's historical fiction books, there's fantasy, there's sci-fi, and it's for readers of any ages. And
right.
Things, coming at this as somebody who doesn't read, who doesn't only read YA, I think that it's important for readers to read, like adult readers to read YA, to read middle grade, to read picture books, whether they've got children in their lives or not, because there's interesting stories and funny and heartwarming and all kinds of things that exist in every one of those spaces. But not to only read that, not only read YA, not only read middle grade stuff, read adult fiction, read nonfiction, and just kind of read it. So
yeah, I think that's important too. But yeah, a good book is a good book, no matter the genre or age category, to me. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Right. And keep reading the good ones, and when they're not that good, just life's too short to mess with those. So
yeah.
But I'll tell you, a good one is Not Our Summer by Casie Bazay. Links in the chat. And so if you don't have your book yet, make sure that you visit Magic City Books in person or online to buy your copy. We do have signed copies at the store, and with Casie being an Oklahoma author, she'll continue to be able to sign those books for us at the store and get those into your hands. Casie, we have another question from the audience. Jenny asks, what was the most challenging thing about writing a dual point of view story? Were your first books dual point of view, or was that something new for this book?
Yeah, that was definitely something new for this book. So yeah, my first 3 were all like single point of view. I've always written from first person, present tense. That's just kind of what I've started doing and what I've stuck with. But yeah, this was the first time to do dual point of view. But when I had the idea to do Not Our Summer and had these 2 cousins, I knew it had to be dual point of view. Like there was just no way to do this story and have it single point of view. So it was definitely a challenge to do that. And you really just have to put yourself, kind of get in each character's mind, whenever you're writing from their point of view. So like some people will listen to like music, like have a playlist for each character, or, have some way to kind of prepare themselves. I can't listen to music while I write because it's just too distracting, but I would just really like try to imagine myself as that character. And it was a challenge. I won't lie and say it was easy, but after I finished Not Our Summer, I wrote another book from dual point of view, this time with a boy and a girl. And so I think it's something that gets easier, the more you do it. And I actually kind of enjoy that, just being able to tell a story from 2 different, or even more, more than 2 people's point of view. So I think that makes it fun.
Right. Speaking of music, I'm curious if you have music that you like to listen to on road trips. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a playlist that you set up, or some CDs that you always take with you when you're in the car on a long road trip? What's your road trip playlist like?
Well, it's a little different now when you have kids. You don't necessarily get to listen to what you want, but if I were like on a road trip by myself, like my favorite artists are Kacey Musgraves and Taylor Swift. So I would be listening to a lot of that. But I actually do have a playlist for Not Our Summer that there was a Kacey Musgraves song called Family is Family that from the beginning, like that was like the theme song for this book.
Yeah.
If you've never heard it, like it describes this book to a T. But yeah, I made a playlist for the book, and it's just got a big range. I like a big variety of music. Like I don't just like one type of music. So I've got some rock, I've got some country, I've got, pop. kind of some indie, like folk type music. So I like a little bit of everything. So I like classical music too. So
Right.
I would, have a big variety if I was going to make a playlist for a road trip.
Yeah. And, it's easier now. When I did most of the time that I was in the car a lot, it was, it, you had to bring CDs or something like that, or you didn't have
Mhm.
adapter to get, even, in the early iPod days, and you didn't have the right adapter to be able to do it. And so it was just, trying to find stations out in the middle of nowhere, and
Mhm.
that could be enjoyable. I had a car once that didn't have a CD player when I was in college, and I just had a tape deck, and I didn't have very many tapes anymore and stuff. And so I had like one, concert tape that somebody gave me at some point, and I knew that thing, forward and backward, and
Yeah.
that's the only thing I ever listened to. And now you could pull up whatever you want at any time and be.
Yeah. Yep. I know. It's
And the
definitely.
girls in the book, I mean, they mostly, like, when they're driving together, they're not really even listening to music together, because one of them's got headphones in, or doing,
Yeah.
and yeah.
KJ's usually listening to she's got her earbuds in and she's listening to her stuff, while Becca does her own thing. And they don't really interact, or they try not to interact a lot at first. And then
Right.
they're kind of, after a while, they're kind of forced to. So I would say they definitely have different tastes in music as well. So Becca's more pop, lighthearted, fun music, and KJ is more like heavy metal or alternative music. So
Right.
I think that kind of helps define their personality.
Yeah. When you so when the question came in that would you write a book with these characters again? Is that have you given any thought to what they might do next? That's just, when that was kind of the end for
Not really. No, not
Yeah.
really. Just because I wrote this to be a standalone novel.
Mhm. Yeah.
But, sometimes somebody can write a standalone novel and, the publisher, if it does really well or something, they might, be interested in doing another one, a second novel based on the same, having the same characters and everything. So, it's clear at the end of the book, the direction that each of the girls are going,
Right.
which I don't want to give away, but I would have to stick with that,
Mhm.
where they're each going or what their plans are for their lives. So I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really given a whole lot of thought to that just because I never planned for it. But
Right.
I could certainly, if I had to, I could certainly come up with something. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes I think that we talk to authors, and they had no intention of writing a sequel, but somewhere down the road the character comes back and wants to talk to wants
Yeah.
something different. And we did events with John Grisham last fall, and the main character of A Time to Kill, Jake Brigance, has popped up in a couple other books throughout this long career. And so maybe somewhere down the line KJ and Becca, or one of them, pops up again. But it
Yeah.
depends when it happens.
I've seen
Right.
authors do that. Have characters pop up in other books that
Right.
it's like the worlds are connected, but
Yeah.
it's a different setting or different characters, but a character from an earlier book will pop in, and I think that's really fun to do that.
Right. Absolutely. We have a question that comes over from Facebook, from Summer. She wants to know, what is your next goal? As a debut author, now that this book has been published and is in the world, what's the next goal that you've set for yourself?
So the next goal is to get another book published. So once you have one published, that's not it. Like I want this to be a career and not just a one-time deal. So I have a couple, I have another completed book and another that I've kind of started and playing around with ideas. So I don't know what my next book will be, but that's definitely the goal, is to publish another one. And so I plan to stick in, the young adult category. So, that's kind of my thing. So I can't really say what it is, but there hopefully will be another book coming soon. So.
We also have a question here from Lisa, and Lisa wanted to know if your children have read the book or parts of the book, and what was their reaction or to the book, if they've read it, or anything else that they feel being a writer.
Yeah, they have not read it. My son is in 8th grade, and he's old enough to read. It's geared for 8th grade and up. And I've tried to get him to read it. He really has no interest in reading it. Like to them, like it's not, they know mom is a writer and mom has written lots of stuff, but like they're not interested. My daughter, she's younger, she's 11. I think I've read part of it to her and she was more interested, but I think she needs to be a little older before she can read the whole thing. Just because it's a little above, her age level. So just some of the content. So yeah, I wish my son had an interest in reading it, but maybe one day he will. But right now it's just like, no big deal. And he's more into audiobooks. So maybe if I get an audiobook, he will listen to it. So we'll see.
There you go. So yeah, if anybody watching has connections, help Casey's son listen to his mom's book. Right?
Yeah, he would probably be the only way he would do it right now. So
yeah. Well, yeah, Casie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I just want to close with any advice that you might have. I know that we have a lot of people that are always interested in writing, and just any advice that you have for people who aspire to have a book published, and anything that was a big help for you along the way.
Yeah, so it's a learning process. It's definitely not something that's quick and easy to do. It's not about just writing a book and just saying, oh, here's a book, can somebody publish this for me? That's what self-publishing is for, if you just want a faster route to getting it out there. But if you want to go the traditional route, I would just say talk to as many people as you can that have more experience than you. There's a big writing community on Twitter, especially, where you can connect with people. But attend conferences. Right now with COVID, there's a lot of online conferences. But once that's over, you can attend in-person conferences. I started doing that from the very beginning, and just try to learn as much as you can from people with more experience, people who have published books, or people who work in the publishing industry. And the main thing is you just have to persevere. It's not quick, it's not easy, but if you really want it, just keep writing. Just write multiple books if you have to. It may not happen with the first book, or even the second, or even the third, like with my case. But if you keep with it and keep learning and trying to improve your craft, and if you're really, if you're serious about it, I think it can happen for anyone who really who sticks with it. So that would be my advice.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Casie. Congratulations on the book. It's really been wonderful to talk to you and get a chance to kind of celebrate with you as the book is published today. Hopefully sometime down the road, we'll be able to do this in person again, and be able to have an audience that we can see and hear clap right now.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Pick up a copy of Not Your Summer. Magic City Books has signed copies. There's been links in the chat, or you can go to our website, magiccitybooks.com, to be able to do that. We'll be back again a few more times this week with virtual events and more coming down the road. And stay tuned for in-person events later this summer. Casie, congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.